Welcome to Chalk Talk. I'm Dave.
And I'm Josh.
We're breaking down college sports, our favorite team, Stony Brook, and the latest news affecting sports fans and the business of sports.
On this episode of Chalk Talk, we are diving into the NCAA's game changing settlement and how it will forever change the landscape of college athletics for players, coaches, and schools. We also want to take a look at how this will impact both Power 5 schools and mid majors, including Stony Brook.
So, if you weren't aware, NCAA is in the process of making a major settlement now to stop some cases that have been going on that are really affecting the whole athletic industry and the amateur sports. Can you give me some details about what this settlement is, Josh, and what's the meaning of it?
So basically, the settlement is for $2.8 billion.
Billion.
Yes,
Oh my God.
it is.
Crazy. Okay, keep going.
It is a lot. So this settlement is specifically for players who played from 2016 until 2020. They are basically back damages for athletes since they did not earn any compensation.
So you mean because they were amateur athletes, even though they were getting tuition, room and board, and paying to get this college degree, and some of them got fantastic college degrees, they're getting paid on top of that?
That is correct, yes.
So is this going to change the way we look at college sports and amateur athletics?
Absolutely, this will change the way we look at college sports and amateur athletics because college used to be more like amateurs because players didn't really get paid pure money. They got paid by getting a scholarship to go to that school, but they didn't really get anything else until COVID happened. And at that point, a lot of a lot of colleges and the NCAA were starting to rethink how they can pay players. And that's where NIL, name, image, and likeness, started to come into play.
But I would have to say, argue with you, the Alliston decision went to the Supreme Court, which was a class action lawsuit that really affected that amateur athletes should be paid for their work and everything they put in. Because I'm a big supporter of amateur athletes getting paid because I've seen how much these athletes put into their daily days. They're sometimes working at their sport 7 or 8 hours a day, and then they're going to school, study, and everything else. They're doing that 6 days a week. They should get paid for their time. And I really feel that this is a change that's going to happen that we're going to see throughout amateur sports is if this decision comes to a final agreement, I think we're going to see a change with what's going on. But is this only, Josh, for the power schools, the power conferences? Because I kept reading the arrangement, and I think it has a larger impact. But I thought it was only for the top power conferences. What are those top conferences right now?
So there's the Power Five conferences: Big Ten, Big 12, Pac-12, the SEC, and the ACC. They were all listed as defendants, as well as the NCAA in this lawsuit for not get for the NIL payments from athletes from 2016 until 2020. So basically, this settlement kind of set kind of is to prevent other litigation from happening from other players due to antitrust and due to other rules that were broken.
Right. But I'm looking at it, we're following mid majors. You and I are big mid major fans, and we like it. So this has no implication at all to the mid majors, from what I understand.
Well, that's just not true.
What do you mean? My mid majors are going to have a problem?
Oh yes, they're gonna
Why?
they're gonna have a massive problem.
Why?
So a part of this lawsuit also allows colleges to directly pay players through um which is which is which has a cap of $22 million a year. So
What do you
this
mean? So one person can get $22 million a year?
so on most likely the answer is no. In
Okay.
theory, yes, but the answer is no. No, not one person is going to get $22 million a year because that's all the money that college can spend to directly pay their players.
Okay. So they're getting 22 million as the cap that each college can spend on all their athletes.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
And this is not just Power 5. This is all Division 1 colleges. This is how mid-majors get implicated as well.
Wait a minute. But mid majors weren't even in the lawsuit. I don't get that at all because if I looked at the lawsuit when I was reading it, it was just for the top conferences. How are mid majors affected? NCAA knows that mid majors don't make any money. So how is that going to really affect us if you start looking at it?
So when you look at so it's when you look at mid majors, even now there are mid majors including Stony Brook, which is who you and I follow, Hofstra, Charleston, even massive mid majors like Gonzaga, they have
But what about
NIL
Yale? Yale's
caps.
a mid major also.
Yes, Yale as well. They have NIL, which means players are getting paid indirectly for their name, image, and likeness. And we've seen that with a lot of athletes at Stony Brook, at Yale, at Charleston. Gonzaga's like the best example of like a high like a very good team that is a mid major. They're paying guys through NIL currently right now.
Right. But now with this agreement, you said it's $22 million. How do you think mid majors are going to be affected? I think there's going to be very little implication for mid majors, but I'm concerned that mid majors are going to be affected. And if we start talking about mid major conferences, it's going to be a big deal. Look, I love Rutgers and I follow them all the time. I think they're part of the Big Ten, and I think they're making lots of money. I think Steve Peichel did a great job there, but I think there's going to be some changes that affect them that don't affect like these mid majors we were talking about: Yale, Gonzalez, Stony Brook, Hofstra, and a number of others.
So the reason I think mid majors are going to be affected is because these Power Five schools they have the ability to pay the $22 million a year, which is their cap. But if you look at a Yale, a Stony Brook, if you look at a Hofstra or any other mid major college, they're not going to be able to pay $22 million a year to athletes. So that means more athletes are going to go to better schools or you're going to have the best athletes demand just about all the money that mid majors can pay for having only, which means they might only be able to pay one player. I know certain schools have only a few $100,000 to work with, and and some players might demand 300 $400,000, and then they can say, well, I can go to a Power Five school, get 2 3 million, even though they're not going to play much. They now have that leverage over mid major schools.
Right, and I see what you're saying because if they come in and they're trying to demand all the money at their mid major, they feel like if they can get it, they're going to try to do it. Now, but I remember reading something about this agreement may have impact on the conferences, and if it really has impact on conferences like CAA and some of the other leagues, what impact is that going to have? Because honestly, this is where the business side of it comes in. The business of sports at the amateur level, the college level, has been a lot to get more exposure for those universities. And yes, they've been using the name and likeness, and that's really been an important thing that now athletes should be paid for. But is this gonna like really start draining amateur athletes' budgets and sports budgets?
I believe it will.
Okay.
So what you have to understand is the majority of conferences, the way they get their revenue is from taking a percentage of the amount of money that teams will get from making it to the NCAA tournament. I don't know the exact ratios, but I know that like each chip, for example, is like 300 $400,000 for 6 years for every game you play at the NCAA tournament in basketball. Now, that school does not get that whole 300 400,000. There's an agreement that you make when you join a conference that conference takes a certain percentage of that. And that's generally how conferences stay afloat. Now the research that I did based on this settlement of $2.8 billion says that the NCAA association is going to be responsible for about 40% of that settlement, $1.12 billion. The Power Five
So
conferences,
slow down. So you
sorry,
said the NCAA is going to be responsible for 1.1 billion out of the total. How much was the total?
$2.8 billion.
Okay, so half is coming from NCAA right off the top. You said 1.1.
I'd say
Okay.
just about half.
All right. Where's the rest of the half?
So 24% of that, or $672 million, is going to come from the Power Five conferences.
Okay.
Um, and then the remaining 36% is going to be floated by the rest of the Division One schools. And these include all the mid-major
Wait, the
conferences.
mid majors are going to have to pay this now?
Yes.
No way. You can't do that.
Yeah.
We don't have that kind of money. How are the mid majors going to actually sustain that? They can't do that.
That's the problem. That's the problem that we're all facing. So based on the reporting I've done, and listening to experts in the field, they've said that the NCAA is going to go to conferences and say, look, you have to pay 50-60 million dollars over 10 years. Now the conferences, especially the mid-major ones, they can't do that. There's no way. So they're going to go to the schools and say, "Hey, look, guys, sorry, you need to give us like $1 million a year so we can pay this."
And the mid majors already having struggles getting the top players they can and trying to give them NIL money. And we've been seeing that time and time again. That continues to happen. And athletes are now doing the one and done. They're playing for a year at the mid major and they're going somewhere else where somebody else can play better NIL. So now, if the mid major schools are going to have to actually spend an extra $1 million, where are they getting it? Are they going to start really affecting how much athletes go? Because look, if you think about it, Caitlin Clark only makes what 79, $80,000 a year, and she's really making an impact on what's going on college sports, and now what's going on into the pros. And we'll do an episode all on Caitlin a different time, right,
Exactly.
Josh?
Yes, we will be doing a different episode
But
on
what
that.
do you think about that aspect? And how are we going to deal with that with the athletes?
To be honest, that's not really an easy question to answer. I know some schools are going to be able to float that bill. Some schools are not. There's a chance some could say, okay, we're not going to be funding sports at all. There could be some that say we have to fund sports very even less than they're funded now. And you might have some say to the conference, well, look, we can't pay that, and that could lead to issues. On top of that, there could be other lawsuits because all these mid-major conferences are thinking to themselves right now, what the heck? I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't promise any of these guys. I didn't promise any of my players money. There's no such thing as NIL for us mid majors from 2016 to 2020. Why do we have to pay any money?
Right, I agree, and that's a major concern. And if I was sitting in there and I was one of the ADs in that area, I'd be talking to the conferences and saying we got to get together and we got to go back and complain to the NCAA or try to come up with some other lawsuit. Now, I agree, athletes should be paid. I've said this
And
before,
I agree with that too.
but we really need to figure out some way of doing it because I think now we're going to change the way we think of college athletics now because college athletics is going to really be a big difference. I think we need to now start doing some sort of revenue sharing that they're talking about, but we have to do it reasonably because if you're sitting in one of the mid majors, a lot of your revenue is coming from TV. And how is that TV going to be shared amongst everybody in the conference so that they can pay these athletes, which really demand to get paid? I don't have a good answer, but this is where the money aspect comes in that we got to figure out on how to do this because the regular fans are not going to realize that that's going on with college athletics. And that's going to have impact on what we're thinking about.
That is true. Now, granted, for me, I really liked the idea of NIL. So colleges didn't pay athletes per se. You would People and companies would donate would put money into a fund, or they would allow players to get sponsorships and brands to to give them money. That means colleges did not have severe that means players can still get paid, and then colleges did not have to pay players a lot of money, especially the mid majors who can't afford it. And now with this settlement and this new restructured NCAA and this salary cap of $22 million a year, now you're going to start seeing colleges start paying players, and that's going to lead to a whole flurry of issues.
I agree. I don't think we're going to solve all the answers here tonight, but I think we've given our viewers enough information that they can start making their decisions. This is Chalk Talk, and I'm Dave.
And I'm Josh.
It's a pleasure talking to you. Please leave comments and give us a like or subscribe below.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.